Well, I think a part of it was, I was pretty transparent and vulnerable with our last conversation. I didn't think too much of it in the moment, but after I left, I'm like, shit, dude, you said a lot. Not embarrassed, but just, I don't know. I'm not usually that open, to just anybody, and to get the feedback from other people that, not that I inspired them, but like, okay, you're fucked up too. It's normal. How do we unfuck ourselves? So that was, it made me feel good. It made me feel like you used your platform in the way that you wanted it to. And I was able to be a part of that. And I love that. That was great.
Welcome to the Transition Drill Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Pantiani. I appreciate you taking the time to watch. So let's get into this. It's crazy that it's been a year.
Has it been a year?
Pull that mic up by your mouth.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually been a little over a year.
Wow. I mean, I know it's been some time. I was trying to remember when, but wow, time goes by.
I was thinking about it today. I'm like, it was July last year.
Wow.
How have you been?
I've been really well. Doing really well. Work's gotten a lot busier. Personal life's going well. Overall, I was actually just talking to a buddy of mine on the way up here, and he's going through the process of getting medically retired, from the sheriff's department. And he asked me, how are you? How are things been? And I'm sure you guys would say this too. Excuse me. But, you pass your partners, in the hallway or whatever, and you're like, hey, how are you? And like, oh, living the dream. I feel like I am now. But where before it was just kind of like, oh, living the dream. But I'm just very content, very happy with where I'm at. The amount of, when I say free time, I just mean time for me to live my life. I wouldn't have experienced it if it wasn't for me getting retired. And that in itself is worth its weight in gold. It's been very, it's just been peaceful. So yeah, couldn't be happier.
You mentioned after our last interview that you were surprised you opened up as much as you did about your experience, not only coming out of the military, but coming out of law enforcement and the mental health aspect that you dealt with and having to give up those careers. Yeah. How are you doing with that a year later?
Again, much better. There still are some, not things that hold me back, but things that are challenging. And I think that's something that'll never go away. But I have accepted it more and not let it really hinder how I'm feeling in those moments, things like that. For example, one thing that's a challenge is, there's that brotherhood, there's that camaraderie. You get to interact at work, and then, hey, let's go get appetizers, or let's go hang out, or, whatever the case may be. There's that team building after work. And that's something I took for granted, and I don't get that. From my partners and my coworkers, back from the sheriff's department. And it was challenging because I started to feel kind of bitter towards him, took it personal. And I understand, if you're not in their everyday lives, you kind of get forgotten, and I would do the same. But nevertheless, it did affect me to a degree. Something that I thought about is there's a lot of divorce in law enforcement. And one of those components is, whoever is the person in law enforcement, they're busy, they're at work, they're coming home, and they just want to decompress. The spouse feels alienated. You don't make time for me, this, that, and the other. And then sometimes that leads to divorce or separation. So I kind of feel like I'm that wife, or you're just not present. You're not there. And a lot of things are
I'm stuck at home all day while you're at work.
Yeah, exactly. And, I've been caught in that trap, not on this side. And again, like I said, I just took it personal initially. And the more I just kind of problem solved and rationalized, you know, if, for example, you and I are having this conversation, it's common just like, hey, you know, you want to go downstairs, have some coffee, and, you know, we'll keep talking this, that, and the other. But if you and I weren't sitting here talking, that wouldn't have segued into something different. So when you're just out of the equation, it's just natural. And I understand that now. But that was a little challenging to not take it personal and not resent some of the guys that were part of my everyday life. And then all of a sudden it's a hard stop. That was challenging. There was another situation. So I have a good friend with the sheriff's department, and he does training on the side. And
like defensive tactics type training,
stuff like that,
or shooting training, that type stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to get too specific, so I'm not trying to.
Got it.
You know?
Got it.
But you know, he's one of the best operators, guys, law enforcement guy. I mean, he's just squared away, good dude. And the group of guys he works with are the same. And when I got out, I said, hey, I would love to help out whenever you give these private classes. I don't care if I'm punching up sim rounds, if I'm picking up trash, being op 4, helping to be an evaluator, whatever the case is. I just want to be a part of it. I want to be around those meat eaters again. And I told him, I don't want to be compensated. It's not about the money. I just want to be a part of you guys. And that was one of those situations where I'm not in his everyday life. I'm not in his weekly life or his monthly life. And it's easy to just forget where it meant a lot to me to have that conversation with him, but he didn't understand it because the angle he was at, he didn't understand that it was a big deal to me.
Right.
And, you know, he goes through life. He's a busy dude and he just kind of forgot about it. And yeah, that was something, and he never took me up on that opportunity. Inevitably I reached out to him and we talked about it. Started off a little bumpy, but we managed to, you know, it was fine. Again, I think it was just initially I reacted because I took it personal. But as we spoke and as I just kind of started to rationalize a little bit more about it, I just realized it's nothing against you. It's just people are moving forward in their lives, and, you know, you're going to play whatever part that you're given. But if you're not, then, you know, it's fine. So that was a challenge, just having that brotherhood and that daily interaction to go to nothing. It is tough. So
you bring up a great point though, because we all are guilty of this. We all are guilty of the out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
And even with some of the people that are closest to us, that life gets in the way. And it literally is, if you're not in the person's front sight, you're not a target.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to use a cliche type analogy
it's
for
accurate.
law enforcement, or military, but it's true.
Yeah.
And we all have to be better at it. It just depends on whether or not you're on the receiving end of it or the giving end of it. We all, you know,
we're all victims on one end or the other,
or we're suspects on the other side.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
As much as you reached out to your buddy and you wanted, what he was not seeing is it wasn't merely of, hey, let me just help out. It was, this gives you your connection back to what
yes.
you used to do.
Yes.
And so he didn't see the big picture.
And I think he looked at it of like, okay, I'll put you on the roster of all the other people that want to help us. Thank you. So he didn't, and it was my fault for not conveying that to him in a better way. But he didn't understand the importance it was for me. You know, and there was one of those things like, oh, all these people are just friends of convenience. But in a sense it is, but it's not negative. It's just the way it is. So yeah, like I said, that was a hard pill to swallow, but once you rationalize and the dust settles, I feel like the asshole. So, yeah.
Something else I wanted to bring up. You mentioned that from your episode, you had friends of yours talk about how they were going to seek help, or that they were going to kind of look at themselves a little bit more. How was that for you? I mean, did that, I guess I'm looking for that cliched answer, but did that make you feel good?
Well, I think a part of it was, you know, I was pretty transparent and vulnerable with our last conversation. I didn't think too much of it in the moment, but after I left, I'm like, shit, dude, you said a lot. Not embarrassed, but just, I don't know. I'm not usually that open, to just anybody, and to get the feedback from other people that, not that I inspired them, but like, okay, you're fucked up too. It's normal. How do we unfuck ourselves? So that was, it made me feel good. It made me feel like you used your platform in the way that you wanted it to. And I was able to be a part of that. And I love that. That was great.
Cool. As far as your physical health, you talked about your back injuries and stuff like that, and trying to balance dealing with those long-term injuries. And we even kind of joked about creating a workout program. Yeah. But physically, have you been able to maintain a workout regimen? Have you been able to stay kind of healthy that way?
Yeah. It's funny you bring that up too. So, all my injuries were isolated to my neck when I had 2 neck surgeries. I've always had lower back issues. I think I talked about it, how 2004 I was ejected from a truck outside of Fallujah. And I started having back issues then, but it was nothing that would floor me or, put me down. And as soon as I started my medical retirement process, it started to exacerbate and get worse. So it was just one of those just God moments where I wasn't on the front lines wearing my gear, being a workhorse when things started to flare up even worse. So been going through the process with the doctors, started off with, an MRI, CT scan, stuff like that. Inevitably they did something, I think it was called a SPECT scan, something where they inject you with radiation. You go through the scan. It's like an hour long.
They watch the dye go through you or something.
I believe so. Something like that. And they found out I have 2 fractured vertebrae from an old injury. They could tell by the scar tissue. But it was undiagnosed and was never treated. And that's essentially the nexus from all my lower back problems. So I'm just like, geez, man, it never ends. But I was grateful because it's like, okay, I'm glad this is happening now when I'm writing a desk, rather than, I'm on a call out or something and I'm stiff as a board and I can't move. So I was grateful for that. So initially they wanted to do surgery. I forget the name of it, but something where they come in from the side and fix it that way.
A sideotomy.
Yeah.
That's the formal medical term.
Okay, there you go. One of those.
All my years of medical training.
I just didn't want to go through another surgery. Especially, these 2 sucked. So I was like, okay, what are my other options? Let's try the epidurals, which subsequently enough is funny because I can work out and be okay and not have flare-ups. But like for Thanksgiving and Christmas, I cook. I love to cook, and just being slightly bent over for extended amount of time while I'm working in the kitchen, and also working on my knives, just being slightly bent over, working on those blades. At minimum, I'm in bed for 1 day. Pop in the what's it called? It's a form of ibuprofen. I have this whole regimen. I throw in the ibuprofen, some kind of muscle relaxer, ice my back, then go to heat, ice, heat, do that for 3 different times. There's this stretching regimen that I do. And then typically the next day I'm still hurt, but I can walk around. Like it got pretty bad.
Wow.
So surgery started to sound better and better. But ultimately I just like, hey, I want to buy some time and see if the epidurals work. So honestly, I hadn't worked on knives, 4 months, something like that, this past 4 months. Just waiting for these epidurals to kick in. I just had my 3rd injection a few weeks ago, and I was talking to my doctor, and because it does disrupt my way of life, because there's still physical activities I want to do. It was hard. A couple nights ago, my youngest son, he's going to be a freshman, and the football team had this big a bonfire in Huntington, and it was supposed to be dads versus the kids, and it was heartbreaking to not be able to go out there. I mean, hypothetically, yes, I could, but it's the risk versus reward.
You'd have paid for it.
Yeah. And it just sucks. That, like I said, I can work out in the gym and I could be somewhat healthy and fit. But to do like normal life things, I can't, or I shouldn't. So that was rough. But right before my last injection, my doctor was just strategizing, okay, what's next if this doesn't work, things like that.
What's your doctor thinking? I mean, is your doctor optimistic about the injections?
Well, he's optimistic, but well, he did a good job making a deal with me. So my brother, who's in the Air Force Station in Georgia, he came to visit, and we had planned, which sounds so stupid now, but we planned to go on a backpacking trip. And
that was going to be my next topic I was going to go into. So nice lead in.
Okay. So I was telling my doctor about that, and I'm just like, I got this pending trip. Like I'm
going to put this big old pack on my back.
Yes. But see, and that's what's challenging is I think it's so important for me specifically, but I think, anybody in our line of work cut from the same cloth is it's dangerous getting comfortable, being comfortable. And you have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations to better yourself. And when I say uncomfortable, I don't mean uncomfortable things that you have to do, like, going to work or things that, you just have to do. To deliberately make that choice of, hey, I'm going to take some suck right now, and it's going to better yourself. And I hadn't been able to do that. And that's why I really wanted to do this backpacking trip, because I wanted to deliberately challenge myself, just for the spiritual component, not just the physical component. So my doctor said, okay, let's get you in for the third epidural, and we'll gauge how you feel after the trip. If you come back and you're screwed up, there's your answer. You need to have your surgery. If you're okay, then we'll just kind of play it out and see what happens. So lucky enough. So we went up to Mount Baldy, and it was my dad, my brother, and myself. And sorry, Dad, I'm going to call you out right now. We're bebopping down the trail, and it's nothing hard, but it is challenging. It's not easy.
Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you, was it a multi-day trip or a single day?
So it was supposed to be 24 hours.
Okay.
So
because you were carrying some decent sized packs,
yes.
And I know Mount Baldy, and I know it's not normally known for being a prolonged hike.
No.
So I didn't know if you guys had planned to do some backward route or something.
Yeah. The plan was to hump up there, find a spot to camp, and then just hike back the next day. I think our route was total like 11 or 12 miles. So it wasn't backbreaking, no pun intended. And then since Baldy, at that time of year, there's nowhere to refill your water. So you're packing in all your water. It's a hot day.
Yep.
So I think I packed like 9 liters of water.
It's the mountains, but for anybody who's not from Southern California, it's Southern California mountains, which means it's still pretty warm even at the top.
Yes. Yeah. That's a very good point. Yes, there was a nice breeze though, but it was freaking hot. And we're moving along. I'm feeling okay. And I notice, my dad, who'll walk 10, 15 feet and he'll stop for like 30 seconds. And then that would continue 10, 15 feet, maybe a little further, and then stop. So after like 3 or 4 times of stopping, I turned around. I was like, hey, Dad, you okay? And he's just like, I don't feel so good, but I'm good. Let's keep going. And
does he have pre-existing issues that you were aware of?
He had an epidural for his neck. We're all screwed up.
You're all going to be lined up in hospital beds after surgery.
We'll have matching wheelchairs. That'd be cute. Where was I? Oh, so, I've seen enough dudes going down on a hump back in the Marine Corps. They're fine. They're aware. They're coherent. And the next, they're not. And so whether it's dehydration or just fatigue or altitude, whatever the case may be, sometimes the writing's on the wall and it's easy to point it out. Other times it just happens out of nowhere. I'm already thinking like we're a few miles in. I don't want to have to carry my dad back. I don't want to have to wait for, a bird to come or, this, that, and the other. And I'm already trying to strategize of what that would look like. Worst case scenario. What are we going to do? What am I going to do? How are we going to handle the situation?
Well, and on top of it, you don't want to push a bad situation. So if you're already seeing that there's a potential, if the worst case happens, let's not be 6 miles deep into it as opposed to a mile deep into it.
And that's inevitably where my mindset went. So, I asked him, "Hey, are you okay?" And he's like, I don't feel well. I'm like, okay, well, what does that look like? Tell me what your symptoms are other than I don't feel well. And I feel a little dizzy, but I'm okay. I can do this. So red flags are already going off in my head. So I take a mental note and I just draw a line in the sand, that if I see something sooner than later, we need to make a decision. So he did it 2 more times. Within a matter of 25 yards, he did it twice. Sorry, Dad, 100 yards. Let's say 100.
It was a mile, Dad. It was a mile.
So I just did a hard stop. I'm like, "Hey, Dad, sit down." I reemphasized to him, "I love you. I'm having a great day with you. If we have to turn around, it's okay. But I need a no shit assessment."
There's a bar down. We can get to a bar and just go drink.
Yeah, seriously. But I'm like, I need a no shit assessment. And, I think maybe his ego got the better of him. And nope, I'm good. We could do this. He's like, there's a clearing. He's done it multiple times, younger, obviously.
I was going to say, did he get a chance to prep? Was he doing some smaller hikes before this?
And backtracking even further, while we're reviewing the route prior, a week prior to going, I'm looking at it and, I'm not in backpacking shape. My brother and my dad are not. I think I might have a better understanding of what that undertaking looks like. Not to devalue their background. I'm just being arrogant with all the stupid hikes I had to do in the Marine Corps.
They called them hikes. We're going on a hike.
No, humps. We call them humps.
Hike sounds so fun.
I remember being in the Marine Corps and we're on these humps, and I remember telling my buddy, I was just like, I can't believe people do this shit for fun. This is so dumb. But moving forward, I'm super excited. But a week or so prior to, I'm looking at the route, realizing our capabilities or lack thereof. I shot out a text on the thread and I said, "Hey boys, we're all 3 not spring chickens. We all have back issues. Do we need to reassess what route we're going on?" And my dad chimes back like, "Nope, I've never hiked Baldy proper." He's done other in that area. So he's like, I really want to do it. And I'm just like, oh shit. Okay. But I was like, hey, whatever, we'll see what happens. So moving forward, we're on the hike. I sit him down, try to get an assessment from him, just see how aware he is. Is he sweating? Is he not sweating? Shaking, signs and symptoms of dehydration or whatever. So he says, John, there's a clearing about 300 yards up. Can we just make it to there and then we'll bed down for the night? We'll just kind of, and at this point I think it's around like 3 in the afternoon. Which I was fine with. Like, I don't care. We don't need to be walking the whole day anyway. I'm fine with not walking around all day. So and I like, hey, that's reasonable. So I just said, okay, I'm gonna put my pack down. I'm gonna go up, kind of see what I could see. And if it is 300 meters or 300 yards away, then, let's go up there. We'll rehydrate, get some food, get some sleep. And then most of the hike back is downhill anyway. So thank God I did. So, started marching off, left my gear, made it 300 yards and there's nothing. So I'm like, okay, let me just do my due diligence. I'm already 300 yards in. So I went 500 yards down the trail, up the trail, I should say. And there was still nothing, just more up. So I came back and I was trying to be gentle but direct, because if I was in his shoes, I think my ego would get the better of me and I would feel like, oh, I'm an asshole ruining this trip, even though that wasn't the case, but that's how I might interpret it. So I was trying to be gentle but direct. And I just said something to the effect of, hey, Dad, if we go home, it's not going to be your choice. It's going to be Paul's my brother. It's going to be Paul's and my decision, not yours. So get that. You don't have a say so right now. And then we just kind of started to round table of options and what we could do. And that's when I just realized, okay, the writing's on the wall, but no one's saying it. So I'd say, we're leaving. We got to go. And so we took some more water. He poured out a lot of it, just so it's less to carry. He had a day pack attached to his pack. So I took his day pack just to lighten a little bit more. And we made it all the way back to the lifts. I'm sure you know where the ski lifts are. And thank God, because we got to the ski lifts, he dropped his pack, and it was like a chaos but controlled sit down motion, and you could just see he wasn't doing okay.
Right.
So I felt better, like, okay, we made the right call. We ended up getting back and we went out to sushi. But so the trip got cut exponentially short. So I didn't really get to push my body as much as I wanted to really see how my back would feel.
What was it that was impacting your dad?
I think it was dehydration. He said he had some pain. It was either his knee or his hip. But the biggest issue was dehydration. They said, my brother was saying too, the elevation impacted him. It didn't impact me, and I'm no freaking rock star. But who knows,
right.
So there's multiple different reasons why he wasn't feeling well, but ultimately it was dehydration. My dad's a talker, and once we made the decision to walk back, where there's an uphill before we get to the downhill spot, and he's just chatterboxing, just talking. And I just, encouraged my dad, like, hey, I want to hear what you have to say, but let's save it for the downhill. Right now, I just need you to focus on your breathing and get into your zen, just enjoy the environment. And once we get to the downhill, I want to hear all about it. And he's like, okay. So that reminds me, you just go back into like, good grief. But ultimately it was so much fun. I hadn't gone backpacking in, I don't know how long, since the Marine Corps. And it really just made me excited of like, I want to come back by myself. Like, this is beautiful. And I loved that, physical and mental challenge. And again, it's not overly challenging, but, for me,
Yeah.
But when we got back the next day, I definitely was very tight. But I wasn't bedridden. So that's progress. And I went through my regiment.
I was going to say, did you have to do your ibuprofen cocktail?
Yeah, exactly. And I did that. And it was cool. It was more preemptive. I was still hurting, but not as bad as I typically am. So like I said, it was progress to me. So just went through the whole process. Now it's fine.
How'd you feel a few days out from that? Or are you one of those, if it's bad, it's going to be bad that next day and then it's gone? Or will you feel it maybe 2 or 3 days out?
You mean prior to the?
No. So you talked about how you came back down. You weren't really feeling a lot of pain. You did your preemptive. Okay. What I'm saying is, how did you feel 2 or 3 days removed from that?
Got it. Well, I was in pain, but again, nowhere near the level of pain I've been experiencing this past year-ish. Like I said, I cooked on Thanksgiving and I was bedridden. I remember Christmas, I was cooking, wake up in the morning, I'm going to go make all my kids, Christmas breakfast. No shit. I walk out of my bedroom, I'm in my hallway, and I completely lock up. And I can't move. I had to scream for help. my middle son, who was sleeping on the couch, he woke up from it and he ran in, and I literally had to grab onto him and take baby steps back to my bed. Like, it was severe. Like, it sucked. So it was positive that it wasn't that bad. And I think being preemptive and going through that regiment the day after really helped. But then in addition to that was, working on your knives. I knew that would be, a tell sign as well. Like, how much progress have I made? I'm still on the fence. I was talking to I have a really weird situation. I get along really well with my ex-wife and her husband. I don't know if I brought it up before, but, Like, I'm such good friends with her husband. I call him my husband-in-law. Like, we get along. We're an anomaly for sure. And I was just telling them about the trip, and my ex-wife's had a few back surgeries herself. And I told, like, yeah, I was hurting, but, you know, I did my regiment and I'm feeling okay. And she brought up a very good point, was like, but you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to go through that regiment. I was like, shit. I didn't tell her she was right, because I don't want to tell her she's right. But
even divorced, you don't want to admit that she's right.
I'm going down with the ship.
My back is fine.
Yeah, it's totally fine. But that resonated with me. I'm like, she's right. Like, I shouldn't have to go through these things just to enjoy life. So I'm still on the fence. My surgeon didn't help me at all when I told him I'm reluctant, just because of the experiences I had with my neck surgery. And he was being honest. He's like, oh, dude, this is way worse. I'm like, shit, I don't hear that. And he just said, basically, you know, up here it's isolated to up here, but down here it's, you know, it's the major intersection of your whole body. And it's going to be more challenging to recover. So I'm still on the fence. I do feel way better than I had before. That Christmas morning, that's after that moment, that's when I realized I'm doing my neck injury all over again. Writing it off. You'll be okay. You'll heal. It'll be fine. But that morning, it terrified me. And that's when I started the process of going into my doctor and going through all the tests and stuff like that.
I'm the last one to give advice, because I haven't had back surgery. I'm sure just being around you, though, everybody else is coming in contact.
You're screwed.
My back surgery is scheduled for 3 months from today.
Yeah.
But it's that you're fighting that teeter-totter, because you're going to get, age is going to play its cards.
Yeah.
There's no way you can get around that. Then you fight your mind, because your mind's telling, we all have this. Our mind's telling us, I'm 25. I could do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And it's finding what works, so that, like you said, so you can keep moving forward. Because in my life, what I've experienced is, it seems like people are going along, and then it's that one event, physical event, that causes them just to fall off the cliff.
Yeah.
And they never recover from that. And I'm using recovery kind of like as a pun, because it's not the injury, it's per se the mindset of they've stopped making moving forward that priority. They've given in, like you said, to the injury. Yeah. And so if, you know, your doctor's saying you need to do it, I mean, I'm hoping that your doctor's giving you the best advice. But at the end of the day, you got to make that decision for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just, I don't want to cross a line where I keep missing out on life experiences. I want to get ahead of it before it gets worse. I mean, for example, I see your Instagram, and you do jujitsu. Years ago, I trained for a couple of years. I think back in like 2008 or 9, somewhere around there. I fell in love with the art. It's just, you know, they say it's the lazy man's martial art, which I definitely identify with. But I just love just the balance with the technique over strength, and being able to
in an ideal world.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. Like, I love jujitsu. And one of my proud dad moments is my youngest son has been rolling. He's been jiu-jitsu maybe 6 months, and I tell him, athleticism isn't how fast you run or how much you lift. It's your mind's ability to tell your body what to do. And he has that. You know, I can picture myself doing a slam dunk. I'm not going to do it. Mm-hmm. But he, through his mind, he can tell his body what to do. And he is so bright where he picks up the exercises or the movements. And I was just so proud of him. But being in his class, watching him, and I feel bad because he's in an adult class. He's 14, but he's in the adult class, and I'm the only parent sitting there, and I'm like, I hope I'm not embarrassing him, but who cares? I'm enjoying myself. But being in that environment and seeing the guys out there working, and it got to me. I'm like, I really want to do this. And I even spoke to the receptionist, and I was just like, hey, like, I can't sign up for a membership because if I do 1 or 5 classes and my body won't do it, like, I don't know. And they were very gracious and they were willing to work with me. I think the very next week they said, oh, you can start like on a Monday, hypothetically. And that conversation was on like a Tuesday, the week prior. And then a couple of days after that, I had a freaking flare up in my back and I'm like, okay, you're stupid if you try this. But that's one of those things where I feel like I'm selling myself short or just kind of missing out on things that I love to do. But then there's also that component where sometimes you kind of need to pivot and accept, you've checked that box, you've done all you could do, and you just kind of need to revisit what life looks like. But I just don't want to give up too much. I mean, I'm still freaking young. Still have a lot I want to accomplish and do. And it's just challenging where it's like you're not doing it because you can't. And that's a shitty feeling,
Well, and when I started, I had been wanting to get in and give jiu-jitsu a try for a while and throw myself under the bus. I just didn't make it a priority. And so a year ago at 52, I decided, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. And you have to go into it with, let's call it a mature mindset. You have to know that you're going to have your limitations compared to a kid who's 25 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm the star pupil. It was just a mindset of mine of, hey, I'm not going to fight out of a bad situation and potentially jack up a shoulder or jack up a back to where I can't roll for 6 months. Yeah. I've got nothing to prove at that point. And so for me, it's been very enjoyable. I've loved it a lot. I got very lucky and I started with a school, shout out to Dedicated Jiu-Jitsu in Temecula, but I started with them when they opened. And so it was nice to come in the door with everybody. So
that's
from
cool.
Day one, everybody kind of knew everybody. And fortunately, most of the people that train there are late 30s, early 40s, current or former law enforcement or military. So it's a bonding. There's the jiu-jitsu side of it, but then there is, and I'll loosely call it the family aspect.
Yeah, it's the community that goes along with it.
And I've loved it. And for me, it's so important to be looking at this long term and how do I keep rolling into my 60s and beyond.
Yeah.
And part of it is, hey, I'm going to tap because okay, fine. If I try to push this bad situation, maybe I'll get out of it. Maybe I'll end up in the hospital with my shoulder, on the opposite side of my body.
Yeah.
And so that just comes with age.
Absolutely.
So I would say, obviously, you've got to listen to your back. Obviously, you got to pay attention to how your body feels. But at the same token, go in and do the drills.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling it, try a roll. If the roll doesn't go well, hey, and that's the one thing I've found is everybody you roll with, hey, you have any injuries? You got to, stay away from this elbow. Oh, okay,
yeah,
good.
That's a good point.
So I would say if you've got the interest, definitely go for it.
Yeah.
But the one thing I do want to cycle back around to is the proud parent. And for me, so I've got 3 kids, they're triplets. They've all experienced sports at different times in their lives.
Yeah.
And when they were really young and they kind of all went in 3 different directions, I basically told them, I can't coach because I can't do one and not do the other. So I'm just going to be the dad who watches. And I let them have their own sports journey. And through their own trials and tribulations, they basically all went away from sports. My one daughter has gone with me to an open mat. She's gone with me to a competition. And on her own, it was just
That's cool.
Hey, I want to try this. And so I started taking her to Saturday morning classes. And then from there, it's like, Dad, I really want to do this.
No way.
And
how old is she?
17.
Okay.
And so she found a studio closer to where she lives so she can go more frequently. And she starts out, how many days should I go? I was like, let your body adjust to it.
Tranquilo.
Try a couple days.
Yeah.
And then go, because she's in summer right now. So she got a little more time from school. And she gets into it. Hey, Dad, I want to go more. You know what? Talk to your professor. It's your journey.
Yeah.
And she loves it.
Wow.
But the proud parent moment was we had our 1-year anniversary party at my studio. And our professor brought in a higher level black belt, and I was so proud of her at 17 years old, and she's been rolling 3 or 4 months. She's like, Dad, when at the end, when he's like, hey, does anybody want to roll with me? She goes, I'm going to go ask him if I can roll.
Wow.
No prompting from me. No, I'm going to give it a go. I was like,
for her.
Good on you, girl.
Yeah.
Go. And that was my proud moment.
Wow.
That she had the self-confidence in herself. Hey, I know I'm not going to be able to tap him, but at the same token, her logic is, am I ever going to get the opportunity to roll with somebody of that level again?
Yep.
And so I had to be proud of her at that.
And I know that was inspired from her coming to watch you initially. That's awesome. I love that.
So I would say, I've definitely become one of those people who trumpet, jujitsu. Obviously, from the first responder community, I do believe that it does make us better to deal with our day-to-day jobs, and I highly recommend anybody going to do it. But it's what you get mentally. There's a gentleman that routinely comes to my Saturday classes. He's 64. Wow. And he's told me, he says, I understand my body's, not cooperating with me anymore. But he goes, I come out here because of my brain. He goes, I need to feel young. And so give it a go.
Yeah, maybe the Elks Lodge will open up a jiu-jitsu. No, I'm kidding.
There you go. Hey.
No, you're right. And it is important that just because you're committed and going to that class doesn't mean you need to go not 100%, because you don't go 100% in class, but you know what I'm saying?
It's not 100 miles an hour every time.
Yes, that's a good point. And I've already thought that to myself of, if I don't take that step, I'm never going to know, and I'll regret it. And I don't want to regret it. And so I haven't committed to that, obviously. But I'm rifling through the idea of, if you don't do something because of what may or may not happen, that's counterproductive to who you are. This conversation is helping me move forward. So, you're right. And it is all about, being responsible enough to not push it when you know you're putting yourself in a position where you could hurt yourself, versus other times where, hey, I can push through this. And that's another good component on why jiu-jitsu is so good, is it gives you that, that composure, that ability to, problem solve in a selfless way, not to protect yourself, but to just have that maturity and responsibility to not bite into your ego. And I don't care if I get tapped out by a 17-year-old white belt. You know what I mean?
Well, talking about, though, for our children, the one thing I also think that it teaches them, life is going to be tough. There are going to be times in their lives where they're going to feel like the world is sitting on top of their head, and they're going to want to quit. But you know what? And if you want to say it's cliche, if you want to say that it's fantasy or whatever, get on the mat with somebody who's equal to your size or bigger than you and smash in the you-know-what out of you. And that's not a reason to tap. That's not a reason to quit. Mm-hmm. You can work your way through that problem, and jiu-jitsu will teach you that. So I think for me as a parent, one of the things that I enjoy about seeing my daughter go down this journey is she's going to be able to take what she learns on the mat and equate it to daily life.
Yeah.
And even what might seem difficult to somebody else, she's going to go, this ain't nothing. I can work through this.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to slow down and I'm going to work the situation. One of the things that I've found is there are guys Fighting Hold Jiu-Jitsu. Follow him on Instagram. He is giving back to the first responder and military community through jiu-jitsu. He offers free classes, for them to come back together and have their tribe and give them that sense of purpose. And then on top of it, you get to do jiu-jitsu. So it's something that has so many different tentacles into how it can benefit your life, besides just learning to be in that moment and address that problem.
That's a good point. And something else too is you see those guys who've been training jiu-jitsu their whole lives, and at least the ones I've been exposed to, they're polite, they're calm, they're patient, they're respectful. So many good qualities that I believe stems from, many things, but having a life growing up in jiu-jitsu. So the company I work for, we have several employees that are in the mixed martial arts community. We're work out of a very famous gym in Huntington. One of the guys is one of the instructors there, former MMA fighter. I want to say he's in his 40s now. I work with him almost on a daily basis, and he's the most likable, just respectful, open, just an amazing man. And, you know, who knows, maybe he would be that way without his upbringing. But, you know, he came here from Brazil years and years and years ago, I think, to fight in Strikeforce forever ago. Not Strikeforce. One of those.
Right.
But, you know, I see that in him of just having that respect and that openness and that vulnerability to own when he's wrong or to be gracious when he's right. And I think about that all the time when there's situations like that. I feel that's from his background, just growing up on a mat. So that's exciting to think, like, for your daughter or my son, who's starting at such a young age, being in that community, all while pushing yourself and knowing that you're going to be okay no matter the circumstance. It's character building you can't get anywhere else. Well, you can, but it's limited. So yeah, I love that whole aspect.
I'm a firm believer that if you stay with jiu-jitsu, you're going to learn humility. If you don't come to the mat with it, you're going to learn it, because trust me, if you think that you're going to be, you know, I'm athletic, and no, and I say kid, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. At 53 years old, almost everybody's younger than me. But you're going to get tapped by a kid who's probably 40 pounds lighter than you on a low end, probably maybe even smaller. And they're going to turn you into a pretzel, and you're going to be like, how did that happen?
What just happened? Where am I? Whose pants are these?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're going to learn humility.
Yeah.
But if you can come to the mat with it, you're going to be that much more ahead of the game.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. So shoot, I think, might have a phone call to make after this.
Do it.
Yeah, I think I have to. I owe it to myself. It's just, you know, it's hard to determine, am I being mature in my decision making to do or not do things, or am I being timid out of fear based off of my past mistakes of pushing too hard? And it's challenging for me to find that balance. But I'm aware that it's a problem. So I'm trying harder to not overanalyze and let things happen, and you know, be safe and cautious, but still enjoying your life while you still have it. But yeah, I mean, ultimately it's, if you don't take that chance, you're never going to know.
At the end of the day, our life will always be better, in my opinion, with physical fitness, physical activity, as opposed to not. Whether it's, yes, could you do more damage to a pre-existing injury? Possibly. But if you bring a mature mindset to it, you probably could find ways to work around it. It's whether or not you're going to give in to the injury or not. Now, I understand also that you need to look at the big picture, the long game.
Yeah.
For me personally, from my father's side, every member of my immediate history did not survive or did not live long enough to see grandchildren. So that's my first order of business. Now, on the flip side is, I don't want my kids running out and having children. I want them to go experience their life. So what that's telling me is I need to make sure that I keep myself healthy even longer.
Yeah.
And so, but I do believe that there are a lot of people that they kind of give into the calendar day and they say, oh, I'm old, so I can't do A, B, or C.
Yeah.
You can't do A, B, or C if you physically cannot do it. Other than that, go do it.
Something I was smirking. It just came to me when you were talking, but, you know, what's the worst that's going to happen? I need surgery. I need it anyway.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, obviously your doctor could tell you, you know, how bad you potentially could do more, how much more damage you could do to the existing injury. But like I said, if I've already got to replace the transmission, let's floor it and see if we can we can smoke the tires off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay. I'm in. But again, though, I've made progress. The backpacking trip, again, like I said, didn't hurt as much as I thought I would. After I made these blades, it was the same. Definitely tight, tender, but nowhere near where I was. So that's progress. So I'm grateful for that. And, think, not being so timid or protective, moving forward and just kind of pushing things a little bit further, but not in an irresponsible way would benefit. Because again, what's the worst that can happen? I need surgery. You know, I'm going to need it eventually anyway, probably.
Just more ibuprofen. It's all
yeah,
good.
it's totally fine. Naproxen? Does that sound right?
I mean, I've heard the name before. I don't know.
I forget. It works better than ibuprofen for me, and it doesn't make you all freaking on the nod or anything crazy like that.
Doesn't tear apart your liver.
It probably does. Yeah, take milk thistle. You'll be fine.
So we hit on it a little bit at the tail end of the first episode. Mm-hmm. Knife making. Mm-hmm. Where did the interest come from?
So it came from a couple different directions. One was, so like I alluded to earlier, I love to cook. I nerd out on that stuff. And initially I was like, hey, I deserve something special. I'm going to get like a really fancy kitchen knife. And I started to do some research, and I bought a couple, about two of them. They're, just north of $100 each one, and they both sucked. So I went back to the drawing board, did some more research, and then I realized I'm going to need to spend $500 to $800 for like a high-end kitchen knife. And I don't want to go where I just went, where I bought two of them and they both sucked. And then I spend $500 plus on one knife and that one sucks. And now I got to spend $800 on the next one. And now I'm out however much money that all equates to. And then I was like, why don't you just fucking build one? At the time, it was when I was kind of going through my dark phase. I was just very isolated, depressed, just not being very productive. I realized I needed to fill my time with something other than feeling sorry for myself. So all those stars just kind of aligned at the same time. Where I'm like, hey, this is perfect. I want to learn how to make a good blade so I can use it to cook with. I need something to do, something to occupy my mind and my time when I have my free time. But then again, I didn't want to just go all out and buy everything I needed and I suck at it or I hated it or, it wasn't fun. So I just bought just the bare bone essentials, did a lot of trips to Harbor Freight. But, in the process, I'm going through a rabbit hole of all these, blogs and forums and YouTube videos, trying to narrow down what do I need and which one of those do I need. The differences of just different tools and what their capabilities are, blah, blah, blah. So
watched a whole bunch of episodes of Forged in Fire.
Oh, I did. Trust me, I did. But no, because I would watch that and they just give you the surface level of what's happening enough to be entertaining. And I would get frustrated watching those because I want to ask, well, why? Why'd you do this? Why those instead of these? So it was more of a tease to me because I wanted to learn, not be entertained. And I love that show and it entertains the hell out of me. But, and you can learn things from it, but,
leaves you with a lot more questions than answers.
I want to know the whys. I just don't tell me what, tell me why as well. So I just totally embedded into, like I said, the YouTube and blogs and things like that, and bought just a very rudimentary setup.
Now, would you consider yourself mechanically or crafty inclined prior to starting this?
No.
Okay.
No.
So you weren't somebody who was actively doing other types of projects?
No. And when I was raised, I really wasn't taught, how to work on your own truck. How to change your oil, like
you can't work
how
on your own
put
truck
up
anymore
drywall.
anyway,
That's true.
Nowadays.
That's true. But how to put up drywall, how to, any kind of electrical. I really wasn't exposed to that. And that was another thing is I wasn't intimidated going down this rabbit hole because I'm confident in my abilities to know that when I commit to something, I'm going to follow through and I'm going to be successful. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, John, like you could barely change a light bulb and you're not even scared to just dive in and see what you can do with the blade making. Just because I was passionate about it. And I knew that if I focused, I would be successful.
When you started, did you know anybody who was forging or doing anything related to knives?
No, I never even in passing conversation heard of anybody that was tinkering with making blades and stuff like that. So it wasn't just from like an outside source or somebody that I knew or mentor or anything like that. It just kind of, like I said, those stars just all aligned. It's funny looking back. I was so proud. I made 3 different blades. I made one batch of 3 different blades, and I was so proud of them. I couldn't post it on Instagram fast enough. I was so excited. I just felt so accomplished, and it's just like those months of researching have turned into these things I'm holding in my hand, and they're freaking knives. Like, come on, it's badass. But in hindsight, looking back, I'm just like, whoa, dude, those are
Don't
rough.
show those knives
rough.
to anybody anymore.
Yeah. But I'm proud of it, because it shows that evolution of where I am today, and I'm looking forward to see, where am I a year from now.
Hey, there are a lot of people, you could give them all the tools and tell them how to do it. They aren't going to come out with a finished product.
Yeah. Well, and I argue that it's just because they don't have that passion. They don't have that commitment to do it. And they're looking for that out, so that when they are unsuccessful, they have a reason. I think we're all capable of that. If you really commit yourself to something and understand that you're going to fail, it doesn't mean that you're a failure. And the best thing about failure is it creates a position to learn more about the situation than if you were successful the first time. There's been times making blades where I would do something perfectly, but then I'm like, shit, how did I do that? It was all by mistake, And then there's times where I totally botched something, but I know why I did. And I saw the final product. I was like, okay, that didn't work. I learned more from that, but I'm not afraid of it. Something that, I would tell guys when they're about to go to patrol, when you're in the sheriff's department, you work the jails first or courts, and then you go back. And there is a sense of anxiety because there's that uncertainty. There was a while where a lot of people were getting rolled back and failing. And, what's happened, people will come up to me and ask, what's your advice? What should I study? What should I look into? What's your advice so I could be successful? And I said, and I've said this multiple times to people, is the most important thing that you need to prepare for going to patrol is know you're going to fail and learn how to press, restart, regroup, pivot, and get back on. If you expect to not fail and you do, that's going to put you off center, and it's going to be even harder to refocus and get back into it. Just know you're going to fail. And I don't know if they took my advice or not, but that was something that, I've learned through life is just failure is just a part of it. And if you're not failing, you're not pushing yourself.
I think if you go in knowing that failing doesn't mean failure, it just means you learned and move on. Using the analogy of going back to patrol, the ones who go in with the good attitude of, hey, I am going to screw up. I'm going to make a garbage ton of mistakes and I'm going to fail. I'm going to try not to, but yeah. Those are the ones who don't vapor lock. It's the ones who think that they know everything and they go into it. They go into making knives and they encounter something and it's just the wheels have fallen off the car. You're stuck in the middle of the road and you can't go anywhere because you can't see beyond that problem. Yep, exactly. When you envision that end state, and don't game plan for other situations that could lead into the failure. If you just look at that, I'm going to be successful, and you get there and it doesn't look anything like that, it's like you don't have another direction to move forward to by just not strategizing of like, okay, I'm going to try not to fail, but if it happens, this is going to be my next contingency plan or whatever. And I'm okay with failing. Yes, I agree. But shoot, I forgot we were talking about the knives on something. We were talking about how your progression into it. Okay. No real background in it. No. But hey, I'm going to give this a go because I believe in myself. And then so like I said, I was never really mechanically inclined. Never been a true handyman, so to speak. Was never, never had a mentor to really sit me down and walk me through these processes.
So it didn't intimidate me. But I mean, even like now that I'm a homeowner, getting confidence from this, I work on my house now on multiple different things. I put up all the drywall in my garage. Couple other projects can't come to mind, but the drywall was really proud of. But there were other things where it's like, I don't know what that is. It's not my lane. So I'm going to hire someone out to do it. Where this kind of gave me that confidence.
Let me give it a try.
Yeah. Let me give the old junior college try and see what happens. And, you know, and I enjoy that. It's almost like a liberating freedom. It kind of like I changed to the next level of that, not the inner confidence, but just that journey of self-reliance, so to speak. And I definitely attribute it to working on these blades. One of the best parts I love about it, though, I typically make them, I haven't really sold them to masses or anything like that. They're all people that I know. And that moment I give it to them, like it's such an amazing feeling to see their reaction. And, you know, they're so grateful, and they're just like, they're looking at it and just seeing all the beauty of it. And I'm looking at it and I'm just seeing all the parts I fucked up. But to see that they don't even see the flaws, they're just seeing my accomplishments, and it's making them happy. Like it's gratifying. It's like you get a little high off it. I love it. And that's kind of what keeps me going. Whereas, you know, normally it's like, I like my free time, and do I want, like we talked about earlier, your garage is freaking hot right now. My garage is just the same. It's not Temecula hot, but it's hot.
Yeah, but I don't have a forge in my garage.
Yes, that does increase the heat a little bit.
I mean, me personally, I'd rather put a pizza oven in there, but hey, you know.
Ooh, not a bad idea. But just putting yourself through that suck to know that, like, I'm going to give it to somebody and it's going to make their day. I love it. It's a cool feeling.
When you first got into it, well, for somebody who doesn't know anything about blade making,
mm-hmm.
there are different types of knives to make, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is it better to start with knife type A than knife type D?
Yeah. And again,
what would be the entry level knife?
Well, so something that I learned is, you know, a chef knife was what I wanted to initially make. Chef knife is one of the hardest to make because you're looking at precision cuts, and your edge geometry needs to be a certain way. And it's easier when you start with a thicker chunk of steel because it's more forgiving versus a thinner piece of steel. You shave off a little too much and you're starting over. So it was much more challenging to do like a chef knife, which initially I thought, you know, that's what I'm going to do first. And it was one of those first batches was a chef knife, and it sucks. It just didn't provide the slicing capabilities I thought it would. My personal opinion is something with a straight edge, nothing curved, and something like a big chopper. That's probably like the simplest to make because, like I said, it's got a lot of meat to it, and the edge geometry's not what like a kitchen knife is. But again, this is coming from a guy who's never had formal training or anything. Actually, I did a couple times just through my research, going online and then starting to follow bladesmiths and stuff like that. I found a guy out of San Dimas, I believe. It's called Whiskey Turtle Forge. He makes blacksmithing hammers, and he makes them in his garage. And he has, I think it's every Saturday or Sunday, he has a workshop where you spend, I think it's like $300, and you go into a shop and you can either make a blacksmith hammer, or you can make a hatchet, you make a hatchet hammer. I mean, just things along that line. And I thought to myself, like, hey, you know, these are hammers, but there's still a lot of parallels, and I want to go and see what I can learn. And I've gone to him twice now, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. And it's again, like I said, you're building a different tool, but with a lot of the same tools and stuff like that.
The concepts are the same.
Correct. And it's awesome too, because the first time I went, I made a blacksmithing hammer with him, and that's the hammer that I use. And it's so much more gratifying knowing that I'm hammering some steel with a hammer that I freaking made. And just, he's very patient, very, he's all about not just pushing numbers of let's make you hammer, get the hell out. He takes the time and explains it to you. Last time I was there, he showed me how to make bottle openers, and I thought it was just so freaking rad. And he's just so talented. So to watch him do it, but then also take the time to pause to explain what he's doing and why he's doing it. And that's something I never even thought of, like, just to make a bottle opener. And that helped a lot. I've learned a lot from him.
Have you been able to meet any other knife makers?
I have not. The only other, I haven't really met him, but through the guy, the Whiskey Turtle Forge, after my first trip with him, that's when I really started to get a lot more confidence of, okay, I'm starting to know what I'm doing. Just kind of validated that all the research I did and what I learned was right for the most part. So I started to reinvest in actual expensive tools and get rid of my Harbor Freight stuff. So as I'm going through that transition, when I was there that first time, he and I were talking, and he says, blacksmithing, bladesmithing, it's a tight-knit community. We all got to look out for each other. And he said in his little area, everyone knows what he does. So randomly people will come by.
The clanging and banging probably are not an indicator.
Seriously. He said people will come by and be like, hey, I found this old anvil in my grandpa's shed. Do you want it? He says it happens frequently. So what he does is he'll put a post on his Instagram for a giveaway, just to give back to the community. Or people he just knows in his network that needs an anvil or whatever the case may be. He'll call him up. Hey, someone just dropped it off. Do you want it? And I really like that. So after that first time I went with him, I started to buy a bunch of tools, and I had quite a bit of bladesmithing tools, like a forge, bimetal blade, and a bandsaw. I had a lot. So I reached out to him and I said, hey, do you know anybody that maybe's trying to start up on this hobby, but don't have the money or, whatever, and needs the tools? And he's like, you know what, even better, I'll throw some stuff in. Because
you were looking to give back by giving your initial tools to somebody else.
Yes. And he says, I got a better idea. Let's do a giveaway on his Instagram. He'll add some things to it. And he created a post, and it just basically said, hey, this is all we got. We're looking for somebody who doesn't want it but needs it. So he had contestants send an email with, this is who I am, so I need it. Just a quick little bio of who they are. And then through that process, somebody else wanted to donate to the package. So somebody else in the community that follows him and vice versa also donated other tools. And it was fun to be a part of the process. And he was very gracious and let me be a part of it as well. And, he forwarded me all the emails, and he picked his top 3. I picked my top 3. We kind of collaborated on who we thought was the best, narrowed it down to 2 and then down to 1. And it was just kind of fun to see the story and see these, some guys were just, they had no business applying. They're just kind of whatever. But I mean, some of these guys' stories, one guy was a farrier out of Texas, has been out of work, had an injury, and is trying to recover, looking for something to expand his business other than making horseshoes. He was one of my picks. But just seeing these backgrounds of just like these normal, everyday, hardworking, good people, and coming together for the greater good of that community and to give back. Like it was awesome. We ended up picking a gentleman. I want to say he was out of Denver. He was a sushi chef.
Oh, wow.
Who lost his job to COVID. And he had dabbled in blade making, and, losing his job, He kind of needed to, he should be on the show because like he didn't have that contingency plan. And he was just trying to figure out what he wanted to do. And he really wanted to move forward in bladesmithing. And ultimately we picked him. And his blades are beautiful too. Like he's better than I am. But it was so fun just to like go through that background and see other people that are like-minded with similar stories and to give back. That was a very cool experience. But to do all that all while learning the craft myself, that was a very positive moment, and to the point where I went back again, and I plan on scheduling again to go back, just for the whole learning process.
You have any other bladesmithing schools that you're or programs or anything that you're interested in?
Well, so I take it back. I actually months and months and months ago.
I'm tired of you lying all the time.
No, I think we talked about it earlier. It's just if I don't write it down and put it in my calendar and then email myself, I'm going to forget.
That is age.
Shit.
Just ask my wife. I just told you something 5 minutes ago. Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, I didn't get the memo. Sorry. It was this program where it was once a week for 6 weeks, and it was bladesmithing. And it was expensive. I mean, for what it was expensive. But I just thought of it as I'm trying to, I just read that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I'm trying to refocus when I'm buying something, is it an asset or a liability? And if I buy something, what's the potential to get money back from it? Whatever. Right. So I looked at it as an investment into myself rather than I'm just dropping money on something that's just going to go away. I don't want to sound like arrogant or, a know-it-all, because I'm definitely on the lower end of the knowledge totem pole. But it was a huge disappointment. I was shocked. First of all, it could have been done in half the time. And, from what I learned versus what it cost and the materials they provided, like I was dumbfounded, which is, like I said, I was very disappointed. Needless to say, I did learn some things, but not $1,500 worth of stuff that I learned.
But at the same token, somebody else, the way I'm interpreting the story, somebody else coming in who's maybe just starting out might have gained a lot from this class. So trying to play a little bit of devil's advocate, they have to put a class together that, that hits to the lowest
common denominator,
or skill set. So unfortunately, you came to the table with a little bit, you had a little bit more experience.
That's true. Yeah. That's a very good point. But either way, I had an open mind. I wasn't expecting to come out being a master bladesmith. Let's just say, even with that in mind, I wouldn't refer anybody to go to it. I've looked around the community. I think there's one in Fullerton. I haven't pulled the trigger on that yet. Because it's all about training, it's like you can read all you want, but being in a learning environment with an instructor and other people at your skill set, north or south of, you learn so much more that way. And even if I go to a class where they're teaching stuff I already know, just to reinstill those fundamentals in a learning environment it's huge. So I want to continue that path of learning. It just that one class kind of left a
bad taste in your mouth.
Bad taste in my mouth.
Well, and the thing is we've all heard the term, I'm a hands-on learner. I got to put my hands on it to learn. I can't just read it in a book. But I would imagine, well, not even imagine, there's no way a book is going to tell you the right way to strike a piece of hot steel until you've done it and that wasn't hard enough, that was too hard.
Yep.
There's no way to replicate that through virtual learning, through book learning. You've got to put your hands on it.
Exactly. No, exactly. And that was something I learned more from the 2 days I've gone to that the hammer guy, the blacksmith, than I did the 6 weeks of that other one, because he would take that time and show you those nuances that you just don't read in a book or on a YouTube channel. So yeah, I don't know.
Now you mentioned that you've already upgraded and you referred to it as your Harbor Freight tools, but somebody starting out, in hindsight, looking back, would you have just skipped the Harbor Freight level and gone straight in? Or would you, if you were even starting over today, would you still go back at that level?
Honestly, short answer is yes. If you're getting into it and you don't have that past experience before, because again, it may sound fun and look fun on paper, but once you start doing it, some people may just not latch onto it. I mean, if you're just confident and, hey, I'm mechanically inclined and this is just my niche, it's better to pay up rather than paying not double, but I bought a cheap forge and now I bought an expensive forge. So in total, I spent way more than just buying the expensive one up front.
But for somebody who's never bought a forge, when you say I bought a cheap forge and I bought an expensive forge, because I'll even throw in, I'm sure there's probably even more expensive forges. But from what you, a cheap one to an expensive one, what's the price? What are we talking about? Price differences?
The cheap one I bought, I think it was just about $100. The second one I bought was about $400.
Okay, so not drastically more, but enough.
However, so my understanding is, you'll use a forge if you're moving steel. If you're hammering
propane driven.
Yes.
Okay.
If you're moving steel to shape it a certain direction. However, a lot of people use a kiln. Kiln is used to heat treat the blade. Heat treating, it requires a lot of precision. It needs to be at a certain temperature for an extended amount of time. If it's too hot or too cold, you're screwing up the heat treat. And if your knife can't keep an edge, then it's not a knife. So a kiln is ancillary to a forge, where the kiln helps you have a precise heat treat. Which again is like, it doesn't matter how good your handle is or anything. If it's not sharp, it's a paperweight.
Right.
So I was actually just looking into
a saw.
Yeah. And this isn't even the mid range. It's like the higher end of the low ends, I think was like 3,500, 4,000.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So that's a huge jump.
It's a huge jump.
I mean, for an amateur, hey, I just want to give this a try. That's a huge jump.
Yes. And to try to heat treat with a forge, it's doable. People do it every day. First I tried using a little laser thermometer, but it was inconsistent. And then come to find out, if it's reflective at all, it's going to give a false reading. It needs to be like a matte finish, which sometimes you'll get when the steel changes color in the forge, but it just wasn't consistent. So then you move towards, there's like a color scale where, steel is this color at this temperature, this color at this temperature. So speaking of heat, when I do my heat treat in my forge, I have to have my garage halfway closed just so the color in the room stays the same. So I pull it out. I need to make sure it's, it's a bright red color to know it's around 1400 degrees. And that's when it's past critical temperature, so I could do the quench.
So what you're saying is middle of August is the optimal time to do knives.
Yeah, seriously. It's rough. It's freaking hot. But since I don't have that formal training, a lot of times like, fuck, is that red or is it orange? Is it yellow or is it like shit?
Hey, what color is this?
Yeah. I think it's called like a Rockwell hardness test. Essentially it just tests the hardness of your blades, and each style of blade based off what it's used for requires a certain hardness. So I tried those. I did several experiments with different colors and then tested the hardness just so I can get an idea of what color would work best for what heat treat I'm looking for. But again, it's a lot of deliberate science, but a lot of it's just freaking winging it.
This looks good.
Yeah, it'll be fine. But again, I love that trial and error, and I love learning, and I love not having that safety blanket of, not having a mentor, but not having a mentor. I'm learning the hard way, which is taking longer. But I think it's more gratifying to just know that it's all on my shoulders to figure this out.
Now, your starting stock of steel that you start with.
Correct. It's called stock removal. It's essentially just a billet. I've done several where you grab a piece of steel and you hammer it to shape, which I think is more fun.
But I mean, where does somebody go to buy that?
Well, I initially started just giving it a Google, excuse me. I think it's Alpha Knife Supply. Alpha Knife Supply has been my go-to. Actually,
are there a lot of places that supply that?
There's not a lot.
Oh, okay.
But there's enough. But with everything going on right now, with inflation, prices have gotten.
And I would imagine there's better quality stock that you could buy to start with, or is it?
So you go to some places and they'll say, hey, this is 1084 steel, and you go to another place, this is 1084 steel. But there is quality difference. And then not only, like I said, 1084, there's multiple different, 02, 1095. There's different types of steels that you could use. And a lot of it has to do with what you're using that blade for. I use 1084 steel because it's the simplest steel to heat treat. It's more forgiving, I should say. At first, I'm looking into it. Some people are saying, oh, it's the newbie steel, they're new to the game if they're using 1084. And then you hear other people who are like, no, 1084 is a solid steel. It's good to go.
Wait a minute, you're telling me that within the community there's people who look down on other people?
I know.
Oh, shocking. You're only using...
Shocking. There's a forum on Facebook. It's called Bladesmithing for Beginners. It's been super helpful too, super helpful. People, post, take a picture of what the hell is this thing on my steel? Or hey, I had this issue. What do you guys recommend? That's been a huge wealth of knowledge too. I'm so reluctant to post anything on there, but and it's, you'll see.
Trust me, you just got to rip the Band-Aid off and go for it.
I'm not a big social media guy, so I don't want to get into that, back and forth or whatever. But, there's guys who will post stuff on there and it looks beautiful. And I think I even messaged the guy, since I'm like, hey dude, this is Bladesmithing for Beginners. And he's like, I started off 6-7 years ago. I post things like that so that when I comment, people know I know what I'm talking about. And then I feel like a fucking asshole. And I apologized. But I was kind of pissed. I'm like, dude, quit trying to be a big fish in a little pond. We're all learning. We're all trying to figure this craft out. So yeah, I was high and right big time, but I owned it. Which is why I stay away from commenting and posting stuff.
Trust me, he wrote your name down. He's waiting for your post.
I know, right? Gets a notification. But yeah, that's been super helpful. But again, a lot of it to me is just getting a basic understanding and then just going out to my garage and going to work. But yeah, the hammering the steel into shape, I think is way more fun. It's challenging, but doing the stock removal, it's more efficient for me. And one of the small nuances of shaping a knife just with a hammer, not only just trying to get the shape somewhat looking like a knife, but once you're all done, your piece of steel is all cattywampus, and now you got to straighten it out and
without breaking it.
Yeah, well, if it's hot enough, you'll be fine. But that was one of the things I learned going to the Whiskey Turtle Forge. For example, before I would keep my steel in one place, and then I would use my hammer to go work up and down. He's like, no, keep your hammer in the same spot. You're moving the steel to do it, and that made a huge difference. And it's just one of those small little things that. You watch Forged in Fire, he's hitting the steel with a hammer, so I'm just hitting it with a hammer. But there's a reason for, why they're doing it that way that you kind of overlook. So that's been beneficial.
For somebody starting out, what's the one biggest mistake that you made that if like you could like, hey, don't do this?
Gosh, this is going to sound terrible and boring, but do your due diligence. Read up on it. Ask questions to whatever resource you have, so that when you do it, you have a plan. You know, it may look completely different by the end of it, but if you go in with some strategy rather than just Home Depot sells steel, I'm going to go buy steel from Home Depot. And then, hey, you know, for example, initially I would buy 5-minute epoxy, and I learned very quickly that when you're applying, you know, you have the handle scale, the steel where the tang is, you put in the pins, and then you put the other scale on top. Well, if you're just off so slightly, or you need to make modifications, or, you know, whatever the case may be, before you know it, it's 3.5-4 minutes and your epoxy's almost dry. So moving forward, I buy the
5-hour epoxy.
Yeah, seriously, whatever it is. But the epoxy that takes longer to dry, because I've done that enough times, where I screw up and then I have to wait for it to dry, then sand it down, and then start all over again, where that I could have mitigated that mistake just by buying an epoxy that takes a little longer to dry.
And you just mentioned something that I was thinking about. So we've been talking about hammering steel and forging, and it's all metal related, but how much of it's woodworking when you're getting into working with the handles and stuff? Well,
and that's it's all about how much you want to be involved in it. So like I said, I'll buy handle scales, and, you know, there's multiple different websites for that too, multiple different types of material. These ones it's called a G10. But, you know, there's wood scales, but something I learned too is it needs to be stabilized. Does that sound right? I don't know. Stabilized.
You tell me. I've never made a knife.
Essentially, if you just, you know,
I lose them great.
Yeah, seriously.
I can lose a knife like a pro.
Well, it's something to the effect where, you know, you put on a wood handle that hasn't been stabilized. Over time, it's going to warp. Stabilized wood doesn't. So there are those people out there where they will make their own wood scales. They'll stabilize it. They'll use, you know, different types of wood. There's beautiful handles where, you know, it's like epoxy in the center and then wood, and people can just go hog wild with the designs. And some of the stuff I've seen is just so beautiful that, you know, just normal guys like me do it. And that's something I definitely want to do down the line, but I don't want to spread load what I'm learning too broad. I want to get better at just working with the steel, and then, okay, I'm comfortable with this, and I'm comfortable now, but I want to know the whys. And until I am 100% confident on the whys, I'm not going to start a new subject. But yeah, the woodworking, the sky's the limit, even though it's just, you know, that small of a piece of wood. There's so many different designs and techniques that you can do to make just beautiful handles. But yeah.
As far as your goals for making knives, so what's the next level knife that you are aiming for? And then right now, what's your holy grail knife that you want to make? And I'm asking more of, are there drastically different types of knives? I know you mentioned like a chef's knife, but and I'm going to go back to the few episodes of Forged in Fire that I've seen, because they're making blades that are, you know, 12, 16 inches long, and they're trying to hack through half carcasses of pigs. And,
yeah.
But I mean, I've heard the term a Damascus knife, I believe.
That's what I was going to bring up. Well, so short term, one of the things on my bucket list is I want to get an hydraulic press, because I want to start making hatchets. And, you know, through my buddy at Whiskey Turtle Forge, he's taught me a lot. And I bought the correct steel, and I was going to make a hatchet, but I don't have a hydraulic press. And I learned real hard, real quick, it is not easy to move steel that thick with a freaking hammer. I love it, but I don't love it that much to sit there. Especially when I was exposed to his hydraulic press, and you can do in 2 minutes what takes hours.
Come out of the garage with a Popeye forearm.
Yeah, seriously. But I've always been infatuated with hatchets, just even when I was a kid, just, growing up and seeing like the Indians with the tomahawks and, being in Cub Scouts and using hatchets. And I just think they're nostalgic, and I love hatchets, and something that appeals to me, whether you're bushwhacking or some sort of like tactical hatchet, things like that. I think they're freaking badass. So I would love to jump into making some hatchets. Something I've dabbled in, like you brought up Damascus.
What is a Damascus blade? What does that mean?
It's layers of different types of steel.
Okay.
And then there's different ways to make patterns of it.
So you're actually heating multiple pieces of steel and molding them or blending them all together?
Essentially, yes. But there is something, so there's a thing called a sanmai, where it's, hardened steel or high carbon steel sandwiched with low carbon steel. So then when you create that billet, the low carbon steel and the high carbon kind of intersect, and it makes a really cool design. But what I really loved was a thing called a gomai, and sanmai is 3 layers, 3 in Japanese, Chinese, san.
You could say anything right now, and I'm going to agree with you because I've never heard the term.
So sanmai, this san relates to the number 3.
Okay.
Gomai, the go relates to the number 5. Gomai is a 5 layer. However, it's low carbon, copper, high carbon, copper, low carbon. And you sandwich it together, and it just creates this beautiful pattern. So I actually went out, and because you have to weld the outside of it. So I bought a welder. No idea how to freaking use a welder. Fortunately,
this sounds like you make it nice. I don't know how to weld, but I'm going to buy it.
Figure it out. Fortunately, I have a friend of mine I went to high school with. That's his profession. He's a welder. So he came over, and I paid him in Modelo's, and he just showed me just the basic fundamentals of how to use it. So I made my first billet and hammered it out. And I was working on it last night when I was in between waiting for stuff to cure on there. I've already learned that it's a little too thick. I need to use smaller or thinner billets. But it's just going to look freaking badass. Well,
when you say a thinner billet, that's just the different layers,
the thickness of it. So essentially, I'm buying, the 2 low carbons, the high carbon, and then the coppers, and the high carbon, it was too thick. I think I got, it might have been a 1/4 inch, but you put a 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, and you put it all together. I mean, it's freaking thick. So it's just one of those things one of those learning curves.
Something like that. Are you coming back to that hydraulic press, or are you going to your kiln?
So
forge?
hydraulic press would be optimal, but I'm just using the hammer, and that's the other thing with Damascus. So the way that works is the copper actually melts, and that's what keeps it together. And just for the audiences, I'm self-taught, so if I'm screwing anything up, like I'm doing my best. I'm not an expert, but Damascus, you're actually forge welding it together, whereas the copper kind of melts and creates that adhesive that squishes it all together. And then different types of metal heat at certain temperatures. So it's definitely more complex to me doing the Damascus, and having a hydraulic press, especially for some new guy like me, would be huge. But I mean, guys do it every day with just a freaking hammer and an anvil.
Is a hydraulic press your next bucket list item?
I'm waffling between that and the kiln. Honestly, I'm leaning towards the kiln, because where the hydraulic press would be fun and sexy, and I can make hatchets and gomais and Damascus. But a kiln's going to provide a more, a better heat treat, or just more accurate heat treat. It's almost like a peace of mind, like I'm confident in my heat treats, but there's always that, fuck, is it good enough? Like, I don't know. Like, I tested it. I did this, but like, I don't know. But like a kiln, it's more, consistent. So I'm leaning more towards the kiln, trying to be responsible, but I really want to do the hydraulic press. And even so, I'm looking at like a small little hydraulic press that just sits on your bench or whatever, and I forget how much it's capable of, but that in itself is again $3,500. So these aren't small ticket items. The hydraulic press that my buddy has at Whiskey Turtle Forge, I think he said it was something like $8,000 to $10,000. But he has a much bigger one, and that's his craft. That's why he makes his money. So obviously he's going to invest in the big boy stuff. I'm just doing this for fun.
Is that your long-term goal, to keep it just a fun thing, or would you like to start working this into a business?
Well, as it sits now, I'm looking at this time to fine-tune my craft, learn as much as I can as a hobby.
Almost kind of like your apprenticeship period.
Essentially. So that when I do retire, I have a source of residual income, one, and two, something to keep myself sane and busy. So again, I'm using this time right now when I have a steady paycheck. I have an amazing job, just to kind of help me provide life. And once I get to that point where I could actually retire, that's something I could do. Hey, I want to go to Cabo next month. Let me bang out some knives. Or, whatever the case may be. I have that residual income, but also it's just something to stay busy and stay active. But who knows? I do not see myself leaving my job anytime soon. I love what I do and they treat me well. And, I have no desire to leave.
For those that didn't or haven't listened to the first episode, and I'm hoping you all have, we've not alluded to the company you work for because you have to keep that private. The company's not private. They just want themselves to remain private. But just real briefly, give an umbrella overview of kind of what you're doing now.
So a lot of it's kind of jack of all trades, kind of like I'm a little trunk monkey, breaking case of glass. But a lot of my ins and outs are
employee management.
I'll manage our security detail, which we third contract out of, but facilitate any sort of safety or security needs for our multiple locations. I provide training to employees, active shooter, medical, CPR, first aid, bleed control class, learn how to use pressure dressings, tourniquets, things like that. I'll investigate internal theft. Anytime there's an incident, we had one of our delivery vehicles were broken into. I just help the transportation staff give them direction on what to do, things like that. It's a lot, but I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, it's like, the other day our
babysitter.
No, not a babysitter. And I love that. The other day there was, the suite door was malfunctioning. And again, me being trying to get above my pay grade and do something that I have no business doing. I'm like, screw it, I'll fix it, and I went in there and I tinkered with it. And, thankfully I broke it even further and had to call a locksmith, but
I could hammer the hell out of it.
Yeah, seriously.
I could turn it into a blade.
We recently moved our locations, and one of my buddies I work closely with, he was the lead on that project, but I was secondary to him, helping him logistically and stuff like that. So, it's something from, investigating a theft all the way to, hey, we got to get these office chairs moved on Thursday. Can you, facilitate that, and anything in between. I have that mindset of, one of my biggest pet peeves is when someone says, that's not my job. Obviously you need to stay in your lane just for that cohesiveness. And so that there's, there's a chain of command and stuff like that, so things get done. But ultimately, I just love helping out any way I can. So nothing's below me. So yeah, like I said, it's just kind of a jack of all trades, but my primary focus is anything, safety or security oriented. I just finished writing our evacuation plan and our active shooter plan for one of our warehouse locations. So it's anything from, writing those SOPs, and then scheduling training for, active shooter awareness, and then the bleed control. And that's typically what I'll do. I'll incorporate, there's a book called Left of Bang. I'll tell them like, hey, this is a great book. Just kind of go over what it involves and encourage them to go out and buy it. And then I'll go into, pre-threat indicators, what to do during and after the event, what to expect, things like that. And then I'll go into that bleed control class. Have you ever heard of bleed control?
Not to a point that I would be able to explain it back to anybody.
Okay. So essentially it's just a class that's super easy to get certified to be an instructor. But like I said, it's just very rudimentary, how to apply a tourniquet, how to apply a pressure dressing, and when to do it. So I just like the idea of, the beginning I touch on Left of Bang, just give them exposure of just those pre-threat indicators, and then that into, okay, it's happening. What do you do during and after? And then I wrap it up with, okay, worst case scenario, I just told you everyone's going to die, but I'm not giving you a way how to fix it. So here's, how to apply first aid to stabilize a patient. And, I even got a trauma bag at our locations where, it has everything from chest seals, tourniquets, pressure dressings, everything necessary for those types of injuries, in addition to an AED and just stuff like that. So basically just providing that no, so that they have an answer of what to do when something bad happens.
Do you find that most people buy into the training, or do they kind of go, "Oh, you're that ex-cop military guy"?
No, and and that was my concern initially, and I have not experienced that. Moreover, people are eager and enthusiastic and excited to learn this stuff. So that definitely makes my job a little easier. But yeah, I was actually very surprised. It's totally different culture than what I'm used to, what I've grown up with in my adult life. And I wasn't thinking one way or another. The only thing I was thinking was like, this is going to be new. Is this going to be a culture shock? For example, I've worked in pretty much all male jobs my whole adult life. And it's like, now there's a secretary that's like, what do you say? What do you do? Like, do I look down when I walk? Like, but you overthink it. But anyway, everyone's just been very gracious and very, very open, and nothing like I thought worst case would be. So, and it's very, very helpful that my boss is, and like, no shit, I've had the honor of serving with some of this country's best leadership, from the military to law enforcement. My current boss is one of the top 5 leaders that I've ever served under. He's a forward thinker. He leads by example. He has that balance of mission accomplishment and troop welfare. He's very involved, but not micromanaging. He inspires you to work hard for him, not for the company, if that makes sense. I mean, they're essentially one and the same, but to me, I tend to push myself further, knowing it's for a person and not an entity, so to speak. But that's been super helpful too. Just having that leadership from the top, and it just kind of trickles down.
Very cool. That definitely makes your transition easier.
I keep just reminding not that I need to remind myself, but I just got so blessed. I was so fortunate, and granted, unbeknownst to me, I set the stage to make it happen, and not thinking, before this, my best case scenario wasn't as good as how I have it. And then this happened, and it's just, I am so grateful and so fortunate. And again, it wouldn't have happened had I not networked and not been afraid to put myself out there and be like, yeah, I'm in need. I'm not, I don't have my shit squared away right now. Things kind of went south, but I'm putting myself out there, and opportunities presented itself, and this was the front runner, and it just, hit the ground running, and it's been incredible. So.
And anybody who has more in-depth questions can reach out to you and talk to you a little more offline.
Absolutely.
And you can be a little more open.
Absolutely.
So for those that have not been watching, have just been listening, John's tapped a little box that's sitting between us several times through this episode. Is there something in there that people need to know about?
Yeah. Well, so several months ago, you invited me back on your show, and thank you for that. And during that process, you brought up the idea of like, hey, maybe can we do a giveaway with one of your blades? And I felt completely honored, and thank you for asking me to do that. And then in addition to that, I wanted to make one for you as well, because the show wouldn't exist without you. And I know I have benefited emotionally from the show, and I know that has also helped benefit other people. So it was a no-brainer that, hey, if you're giving away one, you deserve one yourself. So I put together 2, you call them tactical knives, EDC knives. So I made one for you, and then one for somebody out there who wants to, however you're going to do the giveaway.
Let's let them see what one of them looks like, so they know what they're getting. And for those who are in the listening phase, this is probably where you want to jump over to YouTube so you can see it. But there will be more information coming out. It is going to be a giveaway. So go to my Instagram, Paul Pantani, at Instagram, and you'll see a fixed picture. But obviously, if you're watching the video, John will be able to describe, and you'll be able to see more about the knife.
And then disclaimer, I was late this morning.
Pull that mic back close again.
Disclaimer. I was late this morning trying to get the sheaths together in time, and they were functional and they were practical, but they weren't they weren't good enough for what I know they're going to. So I just wanted to make sure they're top notch for what I could provide. So they will come with a Kydex sheath. And so this is essentially, it's what I said, it's the G10. It's OD green with black layered. And this is going to be the 1084 steel. The good part about 1084, there's a drawback and a plus side. The drawback is stainless steel. You can run it in the dishwasher and it's completely fine. 1084 steel, a high carbon steel, it's susceptible to rust. So it's important to always hand dry it, put a little layer of WD-40 on it, and it's totally fine. But the plus side to that is not only does it retain its edge longer, but it's easier to sharpen when the time does come. So that's one of the benefits to the 1084 steel. Do you want me to just explain like the shape?
Please.
Okay. So my idea behind this design was, I had a buddy of mine. He actually works for a company called Raven's Wing Tactical, I think. He came over. He's a big knife nut. He actually was the first person to buy a knife off of me. And he came over to look at my setup, and I was showing him some designs of EDC knives or tactical knives that I was making. And he said, you know what, dude, you always want a tactical knife to be able to fit inside an eye, and it shouldn't be any wider than that. And that's rule of thumb, just obviously so the puncture capabilities, no matter where you are, but that's just rule of thumb. You don't want any wider than somebody's eye. So with that in mind, I made it that certain design. I think it's, at the most, it's a little over 1/2 inch, but obviously it narrows down right here. I have this little loop right here. That's just to give some friction for your thumb, just to retain it a little better. The steel by itself, I think it was like 5.3 ounces. I haven't weighed it since I put on the handle scales. I love it. And I put on my little Edge of Dark Side logo.
Nice. And overall length, it looks like it's about 7-8 inches.
I have it written down in my phone. I can look if you want me to.
Well,
here,
when we actually do the giveaway, it's going to be a combination of, you're going to need to follow my page, John's page. Like John alluded to earlier, there's going to be an email component to it. There will be aspects that you're going to have to do to enter the giveaway. I will give time for this. When you're listening to this episode, it's probably going to be the first week of August. We'll probably run the giveaway period to enroll or sign into it at least 2 weeks, maybe even through the end of August, and then we'll figure out a way to give back.
Okay.
More than likely, I can assume we may have a picture of the knife with the sheath before even the episode comes out.
Absolutely.
So if you're listening right now, go to YouTube if you want to see us holding the knife. I'm showing the camera right now. But on top of that, there will be pictures on our Instagram page of the actual knife. And, I hope you enjoy it. John, I appreciate you willing to give the knife to me, but also
absolutely
being able to give away. So,
something else that I've even talked about before. I can't be a part of the front lines anymore. For whatever circumstances that we all are aware of, I can't be that trigger puller. And this is my way to be on the front lines, to get it to somebody. And I don't care if you're opening a bag of Skittles with it, or if you're plunging it into a bad guy or anything in between. It's my honor to be a part of that and to connect to that community by giving back on making something for those guys or girls that are out there. So it's completely my pleasure, and I'm so grateful that you asked me to be a part of it.
Well, and from my perspective, a couple things about doing this podcast, and you almost check every single box. First and foremost, you have a transition story, which I wanted to tell. But for me, it was, we didn't know each other before I cold emailed you.
Yeah.
And not only were you receptive to me, you were over the top. Yes, I want to be involved in this. I didn't have to twist your arm or convince you to be part of it. Then on top of it, you come on the first episode and you give me a compliment and say, I opened up more than I thought I would, which means a lot for me, because I could sit here every episode and say, hey, take care of yourself mentally, take care of yourself physically. You know, you're not a failure if you ask for help. It's going to become white noise. When my guest says it, it resonates with somebody different. Somebody is going to hear your voice and it's going to mean something more to them. And that falls into the last component that I want to address is you had people in your life reach out to you and say, hey, from listening to this, I'm going to take steps to help myself.
Yeah.
So for me, that is everything that I wanted in this podcast, is to be able to give back, and without even realizing it, you getting some benefit, but then even the ancillary is your friends and family got benefit from it. So I appreciate it. I appreciate the fact that you came back out, a second time.
Absolutely.
We have this great studio now. Don't tell anybody that it's at the top of my stairs, but I appreciate it. And I appreciate the gift. Absolutely. And I hope that whoever wins this appreciates it also.
And then one more thing, I'm also going to throw in a t-shirt as well. I have, I'm wearing it right now. Take a look. It's on the backside as well. But yeah, I'd like to throw in a t-shirt as well. Pending on the winner is, I have a few sizes. Okay. So they're not going to get an XL and they're a small, or vice versa. I'll do my best to accommodate what size.
We should mess with it. We're only going to give a small.
Mediums to everybody.
But no, thank you again. I'm happy that, life's going great for you. And I appreciate this very much. Thank you for your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate you watching. But before you go, if you like the video, please hit that subscribe button. Also, any comments are appreciated. Thank you.